Now we're recording. Okay. Where am I coming from? Okay, we're good. So everybody can hear me, and when I hit share screen, everybody can see that. All right. So I'm Jacob Beranek. Like I said before, to some of you, I am an alum. So I went to Junior Composers Institute in 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. So it is crazy to be back here. It's awesome. I mean, it's really an honor. This is like one of the coolest things in the world as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this was totally foundational for my life as a composer to be in. Well, I was in middle school first when I came, but middle school and high school, and to be around other composers. And I mean, it was like going to Hogwarts. There's Harry Potter people out there. I mean, you go off to a place and you're around with other wizards, and you all do your wizardry. And I mean, it was surreal. And I always hated coming home. So it's fun to be back. I grew up near Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. Where's Charlie, by the way? Who's Charlie? You're Charlie? Excellent. So Charlie and I had the same teacher, or I had his teacher, Sam Ecoff. I started composing when I was 8. Started playing piano when I was 7, and went to Vanderbilt for my undergrad in composition. Went to Juilliard for my master's in composition, and I'm now going to start my doctorate in composition at Juilliard in the fall. So that's a little bit about me. The whole spiel for this presentation is for me to introduce my music, my experiences, my process, but also to get a discussion going about a certain topic, and then I'm going to give you a prompt at the end of it. And I think there'll be more words from Randall or somebody about that later on. But first, is it going to work? So these are a couple pictures just for old time's sake from back in the day. This is my bona fides. This is, I think Mary Kate is probably in the bottom left one. Do you see yourself, Mary Kate?
I'm looking. What's this? What year was that?
That may be the first year. I don't know.
No, I think
the 1 year it didn't go.
Okay. That's me and Randall, bottom right, iconic photo. Yes, Sarah, you should be in there.
Far left, third from the left.
The first piece I ever wrote at Junior Composers, Dr. Sarah and Randall premiered, piano trio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Randall, I think you played in every single one of my pieces.
I think you made me.
So, and then of course the ice cream. I'm really looking forward to this. There's a picture of almost every year of me. We would do this big trek to get ice cream. So
and Annie's Parlor.
Oh yeah.
Which is now closed.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. Wow. So a little bit about me. Just this is
not JCI.
I'm gonna get to some music because I don't want to talk too much. I want to show you some music. So, but part of what Randall and I discussed about this presentation was just trying a little bit about my experiences too. And I was the composer in residence at a chamber music festival in Wisconsin for 4 years. That's what the pictures on the right are from, Midsummer's Music Festival. And the picture on the left is not from Wisconsin. So there are two stories with both of these experiences that I think are just good to share. My whole goal, for the record, while I'm here for the next couple of days, is just to be a resource for everyone here, because I've gone through a lot of what you all are going through, very recently. I still am a student. I'm still trying to figure out how to do the whole composing thing and make a living and all that. So I maybe am just a couple years ahead. So any questions you have whatsoever, I want to be as helpful as I can. So the two pictures on the right are from this chamber music festival that I was in. And the reason I bring that up is this is a festival that I went to as just an audience member, and got to know the people, just kind of the importance of getting to know musicians and just being bold with your music. I just would stay late after these concerts and talk to the musicians, and they finally figured out I was a composer. I was 15 at the time, and they said, well, if you have anything for us, just let us know. kind of nonchalantly. And I said, okay, well, I'm actually going to write a sonata for violin and piano. And they said, oh, that's cool, whatever. So I finished it right after I turned 16, sent it to them, never heard. Next year, we go back, we go to the concerts. Hey, oh, that's nice, whatever. And then they said, weren't you the one that sent us that violin sonata? And, you know, my mom bought tickets and, oh, isn't that the name? And, oh, yeah, well, maybe we should talk to somebody. Well, long story short, they created a composer in residence position for me because they loved that piece so much. They gave it a trial run. They snuck it onto a concert unprogrammed to see if people liked it, if the musicians liked it. And, but it would have been easy to give up, right? Because I sent it to him up, didn't hear from him, whatever. But because I kept going and I kept trying to talk with the people, and then they looked at it, that things like that happens. Now, they don't happen every time. I have 10 more stories that don't turn out like that, but sometimes it does happen. So be persistent. And that was one of my own experiences. They commissioned a piece a year from me for 4 years. Now, the other one, that is the National Czech Castle Guard and Police Band in Prague in the Czech Republic. And that was one of the most wild performances of my life. I wrote a piece that got played for the 100th anniversary of Czechoslovakian independence in Prague by the president's own band. But that didn't happen overnight. First of all, I've always, as the people who know me the longest, I love my Czech heritage. I've got a little Czech heritage on my dad's side. Beranek is the Czech name. I used to say Beranek, so a lot of people know me as Beranek, but I got corrected by Czech people. Beranek. So I made it hey, Pat. Pat is here.
Pat, you have to let her in
I did.
because you're the host.
I think I did.
Okay.
You there, Pat? There she is. Cool. Anyway, so how it came about, also just like shout out questions too, as you're going. What's the question?
Are you shaking hands with the president? Or is it someone else?
That is the director of the band. So Colonel Dr. Václav Blahunek.
What's his last name?
Blahunek.
Okay. Blahunek?
Yeah. So here's the story behind this very quickly. I love Czech stuff, right? Okay, I've always loved Czech stuff. Cool. Part of it is a little business savvy too, which is, you know, there is a little business to art. It's not all just art. So I'm thinking, okay, I love Czech stuff. I want to write a Czech piece. And first of all, I got to meet a Czech American composer who was a mentor for a while, lived in Wisconsin, and I saw his name in a book and I emailed him and we kind of would have lessons and whatever. Well, he was very close with the director of bands here, Chris Chernohoy. And he also happened to know the director of the President's Band in the Czech Republic. So I would go with him down to the Midwest Clinic in Chicago. And I'm like 13 years old, 14 years old. And I meet this guy when let's say I'm 13. I meet Colonel Dr. Václav Blahunek. And I talk with him. That's fine. Well, 2 or 3 years later, I'm at Junior Composers. And I go, hey, there's band readings. I'm going to write a piece inspired by Czech music for band. So I write it, we do the reading, cool. That's where that picture of me and Rand is from. We're talking about my score. I send it to the director at River Falls. She goes, we'll put it on our home. They premiere that piece. That was 2015. I was just short of my 16. No, I was 16, short of my 17. Amazing. 2 or 3 years later, I'm thinking, hey, 2018, that's the 100th anniversary of Czech independence. What if I wrote another piece? I'm going to think ahead, and I'm going to write a piece preemptively celebrating this.
2 years in advance?
No, only like a year in advance.
Year in advance.
But the first thing I did is I said, okay, Dr. Chernohoy here knows my teacher, Mr. Beranek, and they also know Dr. Blahunek. Blahunek had seen the first piece I wrote, didn't want to play it. It's fine. But the foot was in the door. So I thought, okay, I'm going to call up Dr. Chernohoy, call her up. I said, hey, do you have even just like a couple $100 for a commission? I want to have commission on there to make it look official. I'm like 18 years old, 19 years old. She goes, yeah, we can find some money, whatever. And I said, look, I want to give it to Joel, my teacher, for his 80th birthday. We'll have him come out to this concert. Well, I'm thinking long term too. It'd be really cool if this was done in Prague for the anniversary in November, but I'm not going to say that. She gets the money. We got the premiere here in May. That's great. Well, on a whim, I just take that score. I send it off to Prague Castle. Never hear back for a month. Month later, I get an email in my inbox. It's Dr. Blahunek. And he says, great piece, yada, yada, yada. I thought, that's very sweet of him to respond. I didn't ask for a performance. I just said, hey, I love your thoughts. Last sentence, we're going to program this for the centennial celebrations broadcast. So I flew over there, and that's where that picture is from. It's from Broadcastle. I got to sit 2 down from Dvorak's great-grandson next to the American ambassador, but it's years in the making. So, I mean, all I'm gonna say is these are my experiences, but they took years and years of meeting people, writing pieces, saying no. You never know when a piece is going to catch on, but it helps the more people you know and the more persistent you are. So those are my 2 experiences that I thought would be worth sharing. So now I want to get into what I want to talk about today. There's 2 terms that are going to be kind of the theme of this, and it's 90 minutes, right? So I'm going to keep an eye on it.
You keep on.
Well, we got pizza. We gotta keep the pizza.
There's always pizza.
Yeah. So the first phrase is melodic motives. That's kind of the theme of what I want to talk about. Now, motives, okay, motives can be anything. I mean, it can be a rhythm, you know, da 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 da. We don't even need to know the pitches to know that that's Beethoven's 5th. You know, it can be. Motives can be whatever, but I put melodic in there, and there may be a better phrase, because a lot of what I do when I'm composing is I think about little nuggets of materials, like 2 to 5 notes maybe, that I'm going to build my piece out of these motives. So I call them melodic motives. Again, let me just reiterate, any questions, whatever, just shout out. I don't want this to be so much a lecture, it's just like a discussion and a talk. So they got to be short, right? 2 to 5 pitches. Why? Because they have to be memorable. If you go on too long, then it's a melody. Melodies are great. For a motive, it just seems to be 2 to 5 pitches. I think that's mostly what I've seen in music. They're fixed. So when I'm talking about a melodic motive, I'm talking about a relationship between 3 notes. For me, what's important are the pitches, not so much the rhythm. Because I like to use the pitches in as many combinations as possible. I'll do them backwards, I'll do them forwards, I'll do them really slow, I'll do them really fast. But the notes, the distance between the notes stay the same. Rhythmically unlimited, I already said that. You can do whatever you want with them. So basically, the proof is going to be, I'm going to play you some music, and I want to hear what you hear when you hear my music. Where do you see this? Bach is kind of the guy. I mean, he's the guy for a lot of reasons, but you know, this is all. It's the same mode here. I would say 5 notes. And the left hand there, measure 11. So he's working with a 5-note scale. That's his motive. He'll do it up, he'll do it down, he'll do it however he wants to do it. But you can look into any piece practically.
I don't know what I'm doing. Am I doing anything? I can't tell.
Mute yourself.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
I keep going. Okay. The other phrase is motivic economy. This one I stole from one of my professors in undergrad. And I'm not talking about like economics. I'm talking about a careful management of available resources. So when you got a motive, what do you do with it? Right? It's cool to have a motive. Do you have 19 different motives that nobody can keep track of? Or do you have 2 that people can keep track of and can follow throughout the texture? Maybe you don't want them to be followed. Maybe you want them to be hidden. But a common theme, and I remember this many times at junior composers, is you have too many ideas, Jake. It's cut down, have it more clear, cut the excess, you know, and that's this kind of cliche thing that a lot of people tell young composers, but it is actually true, and I've begrudgingly accepted that I sometimes had too many ideas, and it actually, you go a lot longer if you only pick 1 or 2 and you see what you can do with them instead of having 8 different ideas in a single piece of music. So that's going to be the theme of my talk. How can you build a piece from really just a few little items? And hopefully you can see that in my music. Why is necessarily the question of like, why should I care? Why can't I have 19 ideas? That's what I would ask if I was in your shoes. Few thoughts. 1, organic, and I'm not talking about your produce here. I'm talking about natural, what happens in nature. You see a tree, it's pretty consistent. There's a similarity in the elements that make up a tree. It doesn't go from wood to like a wrench to like a balloon to, it's consistently a tree. We see this all throughout nature. And there's something for me that I guess the best thing I could say is that it gives a piece structural integrity. There's cohesion. When you see the same elements over and over, you go, oh, okay, I see what this piece is about. And you're surprised when the composer does something different with the materials that have been presented. Again, it's that whole memorable question to me. I want to write music that's memorable. I want people to be whistling my melodies when they leave. I want them to be having something stuck in their head. I want earworms. You know, that's why I write music. And more on the on the academic side, I guess it's technique. For me, there's a certain craft that transcends style. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what style you should write, whatever. But there's a technique that underlines all kind of composition that holds a piece together, you know, that you, no matter what your motives are, how you use them and all the different ways you put a piece together. I had a teacher, I can't remember who it was, but the teacher would always say, being a composer is like being an architect. You got to build a building that people feel safe walking into. And that teacher, whoever they were, that left an impression on me, because when you listen to a piece of music and you say, okay, I can trust this composer, that's what I want to be for an audience. And there's a million different ways you can do it, but I think a lot of it is having to do with structural integrity and having clearly defined building blocks for a piece. This is a really long quote from Igor Stravinsky. I printed it out because I'm old school. I'm going to include it in the prompt at the end. Maybe we can discuss it later on. I don't want to spend too much time reading 2 paragraphs, but it's good fodder if people like to have really philosophical debates. His point was basically limitations. Limit yourself. Creativity comes from limitations. The more restrictions you put on yourself, I'm only going to write in this mode. I'm only going to write with these notes. I'm only going to write this long for this many instruments. It's more of a game. The composer has to be more creative as to how they're going to solve the problem. I think of composing a lot as solving problems. So he takes issue with this idea that you got a blank page, put whatever you want on it. His whole inspiration came from, I need limitations in order to compose. And that's kind of how I see this whole talk. The last sentence: the more constraints one imposes, the more one frees oneself of the chains that shackle the spirit. Very poetic from Mr. Stravinsky there. Okay, here's my first piece. I want to get to the music. I have a paper copy because I was born in the 1900s. If anybody wants it, they're more than welcome to. Look at that. Yeah, I'm going to put it on the screen. So if you want to gather around, you can. I saw their hands for it. You're Alex, right? Sorry. I'll sit it over at that table. If you want to go over there, you can. I suppose you probably shouldn't have everybody go over there. So this is a piece I wrote. The 2 pieces I'm going to play today are very recent. This one was from November of last year, and the next one is going to be from, I don't even know, more recent than that. Let's see what it says on the double bar. January of this year. So this is a piece that I wrote for a class I was taking at Juilliard with choreographers. So I got paired up with a dance major, and we had to create an 8-minute ballet scene, dance scene, in about a month, 3 weeks maybe. That's another thing, by the way. Pause. Junior composers is so awesome because you have to be able to write quickly. I learned so much. My first year, I remember just like sitting and like almost in tears, sleep deprived, just praying, tearing my hair out. How? Yeah,
you're not exaggerating.
It
stressed you out.
Yeah, major stress. But I wrote a piece in 5 days when I was 13, my first year here, and it was premiered, and we got it done. That huge life lessons here. So, the ability to meet a deadline. Yeah, that happened with this piece. Hit me with it.
Curious, just looking at the cover.
Yeah.
Are you your own publisher?
I am my own publisher. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I just saw that.
Yeah, but you know what nobody ever says is just like go get some scores from Schirmer or Boozy and Hawks or whatever and just rip off their layout. You know, it's like, I mean, it's right there. It's everybody looks at this and they're like, wow, it looks so professional. I'm like, well, I got some manila cardstock and I found a font that looked like Schirmer and I just slapped it on a PDF and like, I mean,
Yeah, no, it looks fancy.
yeah, no. So it really is, I do my own publishing. That may not last, but I mean, you get 100% royalties. So that's cool. So anyways, without any further ado, this is Choreo Quartet. The recording is actually the video. But I suppose I should probably put the score up instead of the video. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna have some layering. And then I want to talk about it. So then I kind of want some open discussion because I'm curious as to what you all hear when you hear it. I'll guide the conversation, but Zani, admit. Cool. All right, let's see if this works. Can we see that? Can we see the score?
Yep.
Cool. Now, can we hear this? If I play this, let's get into this. Can we hear it? No.
Did you share sound?
I did share sound. I did do that. Can I confirm that I'm doing that?
Share. There, we hear it.
Did you hear it that time?
Yep.
It's really quiet. Okay, let's turn it up. Yeah.
Should. On my earbuds.
Too loud? Not loud enough?
No, way too quiet.
Really? Oh. Well, I got it cranked.
I'm muted. I don't. If you'd like, want a temporary solution, I have a flash drive.
Okay, let's see if I just find my, I'm gonna see if I can find an audio file and see if that's louder. Let's try this. Is that better? Okay, we'll do that. Okay, so who can't hear it? Because there are some people hearing it and some people not.
I guess move it to anybody here?
Yep. That may be you, Ian. So some people are hearing it, some people aren't. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to, what's the executive decision? I can broadcast it? Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let me get the score.
In your broadcast?
Well, I may just do it through.
understand. I can get the score. Uh-huh. No. 98%.
I'm assuming because there's applause at work and you could, so did you get it figured out? What is your name, by the way?
My name's Steven.
Steve, okay, so
Yeah,
I already
No,
asked you.
so, no, what happened, I just got a new computer and for some reason, I had this different problem with my microphone too. There's like now all these new automatic settings where it
Oh,
automatically
okay.
like, trains out background stuff.
Oh, gotcha, okay, all
And
right.
and I thought it was a problem with the students, so I was trying to figure that out.
Did you get it straightened out though?
Yeah, I got it about, when there were about 3 minutes left.
Okay, well, was it a compelling thing? Was it,
Yeah.
okay, right. So I just want to kind of talk, well, I want to know what you want to know about the piece. I mean, I want to eventually get to motives, but if there are any like, why'd you do this? Or why is this? Like, there's so many times that I have seen composer presentations at school and the composer comes in and reads program notes and then is like, all right, let's move on to the next piece. And it's like, hey, we're all composers here. Like, I'm happy to talk about how I wrote it if anybody is curious about that. Otherwise, we get into the motives. But yeah.
First of all, how long did it take you to write it? And second of all, did you have any ideas before you started working with I saw in here that you worked with the choreographer.
Right.
Did you have any ideas before you worked with the choreographer? And if you did, how did you like incorporate them after?
Yeah, so it was really about 3 weeks that I wrote the piece. Because we were just stalling and stalling and stalling. I'd go into the studio with him, I'd play some ideas, the dancers would dance, he's like, that's really cool. And then we'd come back the next week, I'm like, yeah, I didn't like that. And then he's like, yeah, me neither. And then I'd do a new idea and we wouldn't go anywhere. So finally I was like, Cannon, which was his name, really good friend of mine. I said, look, I'm just gonna write this piece. And once I'm done, you can choreograph it because we're not getting anywhere. So that's kind of how we went about the process. But he was very much, he really was, I mean, he was very interested in the music and he wanted to hear it, but we talked more about what we wanted as far as the atmosphere of the piece. He wanted a certain projection or progression from, it was about trust and forgiveness and that kind of whole thing. So it had to come from a place of yearning to a place of difficulty to a place of trust and forgiveness was kind of the four part. But what's funny about this piece actually is that I had a really great idea for the ending and I was like, I remember calling him over to my apartment. I'm like, listen to this. This is so good. And I said, I don't know where this came from, but man, it sounds so good. And it was this.
Maybe West Side Story.
So for the people that are laughing, that's the end of West Side Story. And I was sitting there going, man, it sounds like Bernstein, but I can't figure out what piece it is. So I was like, man, I just must have like got a really cool sound. And he's like, and I mean, he was like crying. I was crying. He's like, that's perfect. That's going to be the end of the piece. And I had no idea. I mean, obviously I'd seen West Side Story, but I completely forgot that was the ending of West Side Story. And I was sitting in a classroom one day and my boss came in and I said, hey, can I play something for you? He's like, yeah, sure. And I just played that. And he goes, oh, and a West Side Story. And I said, I let out some expletive and he goes, why'd you say that? And I said, well, because that's the end of my new ballet that I was writing. And he's like, oh no, you can't do that. You have to change that. So I changed it. And that's a good lead into motives if we want to talk about that, because I realized I really didn't have a motive. This was the only motive I had was, and I thought, okay, I have to disguise that somehow. So whoa, I can't minimize Zoom. Let's get back over here. Okay, we're gonna go back to the top. I want to know what jumps out to you all.
You have to share screen again.
Oh, thank you. Here we go.
I did notice the end, it's still evoke West Side Story.
But it's an evocation. It's not a right. It's
Not a quote, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I'm happy to evoke. Right. Another Stravinsky quote: "Good composers borrow, great composers steal." So. Okay. Here we are. We're back. So let's do a little hide and seek. Or at first, let's see what our materials are. So, I had 3 motives in my head when I was writing this, and I kind of had to know that from the start. I'm usually a composer that has to start at the beginning and work my way through. So one is this. Is that? So we have that 3 note. Can you see my little cursor?
Yep.
Yep. So that's one. I'll give you a freebie. What is? I mean, I guess that's the really obvious one. I'm just curious. What jumped out to you all? Just no wrong answers. Just well, there are wrong answers, but you can shout out whatever you want.
I think there are wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, just as like motivic elements, like even just looking at this. What are some gestures that you think were repeated throughout the piece? This is the test to see how memorable I was or not. Yeah. 47. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so there's that turnaround. Let's go to the first page because I put them all on the first page. So that's right. That was definitely a gesture I used a lot.
The large jump.
The large jump.
Followed by possibly a note or 2.
Exactly. So I realized that a lot of what I was writing involved major 7ths. And so, I mean, right away in the flute, it's hidden, but it's there. But then there's a lot of minor 7ths or diminished octaves in the piano part. And so I just said, okay, that's going to be another one of them. I'm going to try to use, and it's just a game for myself, right? I'm going to see how many major 7ths I can work in, either like this or like that or stacked or however. And that was you see what I mean? Where it's like, it's a game. You're saying, okay, that's one of the things I'm going to do. It's not that every note and every whatever has to be a major 7th. It is, let me see how many ways I can find to stick a major 7th in here. The other one, okay, yes, this one. The other one, any other ideas? Let's just first one, Alice.
Not like it's the mountain. Like throughout the like it just was always like a shining ray.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't know how motivic that is, but that's a great compliment. So thank you. A lot of people have told me about colors in this piece, and I'm just writing notes, but I'm glad it comes through. So, yeah.
I don't know if this would necessarily be motive, but these really high kind of fastings, then sort of this like apprehensive pause and like the low piano crash.
Okay, so I'm learning things from you all. So the pause is definitely a motive too. I mean, silence is motivic, and we wanted this to be a very stop and start kind of piece. So yeah, that was not one of my three, but that is definitely motivic. Melodic motives. Let's get back to my catchphrase though. One more that I use a lot.
As a reminder, when you guys talk, make sure you turn your mics on so that
Yes.
people online.
Thank you. Ooh, there's things in the chat. Should I be looking at the chat or not? Can I look in the chat? Okay, never mind.
Is it the voicing of your chord? It's such an odd voice.
Well, that at the
It's
beginning,
reversed.
yeah, it is reverse. I have one teacher who hates that chord, and I have another teacher who loves that chord. So it's for me, it's the descending three notes here. The right.
What about that?
Yeah. So descending three notes. Was that a okay? So I just want to point out as many times just to show you how saturated this is. So we can see, okay, measure 5, 6, 7, 8, right? We hear this if I go. Obviously, we get a lot of okay. There's that motive. But also look at the piano part. The I guess you can call it the tenor voice, or not the tenor, the alto, the second from the top, measure 2, you got E, next one, A, F sharp. So that's what I mean of sneaking it in. I snuck it in where you're not going to hear it, but it's there, and I think that means something. All the major sevenths I said in the piano part, and then even when it lands, there's still the there. Let's keep going. Let's see how many we can find.
Lots of descending notes.
Yes, right here already. I mean, I'm just kind of pulling things at random here. Flute, right there in the. I mean, it's almost everywhere. So it's limitless. What I'm trying to show is that you can sneak these in everywhere. Here's sevenths. Now, some are major, some are minor, but it's just that idea. It's when you get stuck and you say, oh, what am I going to put in the left hand of the piano? Not that the left hand of the piano always needs something in it, but oh, sevenths, one of my motives, boom. Let me just have a ascending seventh line. There's the descending scale again. Let's see where I surprise myself. Here we go in the piano part again. E, A. Where's my F sharp? Oh no, there's no F sharp. Oh, but then it's up here. See, I knew I can trust myself. And then, you want to change a pace. Now the piano comes in with this, but that's that three note. Right. Well, so, I mean, there are events, right, that are memorable, but so that's a very good point. I mean, I'm trying to distinguish between what you hear as like the big melodies that are repeated and those kind of gestures to like what makes them up. And so much of this piece was really just, okay, I want a three note scale there. Okay, if it's not a three note scale, it's either going to be a major seventh or it's going to be that little three note kind of thing. Yeah. Question? No. More minor or major sevenths down here, bottom of the page, measure 39. So I don't know, was it that like were you hearing those as you went through the piece or not? I mean, was it really obvious or not? Because sometimes you don't want to be obvious with these things, but pretty much every measure has one of those three motives in it. So yeah.
It wasn't necessarily conscious. It kind of took me until the end of the piece to kind of realize two of the three motives. But for I think all three of them, I could tell subconsciously. I knew that it was previous material, but I wasn't consciously like drawing it back to different parts.
Right, because I don't necessarily want to be hitting these into your head with a hammer. I want it to sound like a piece of music, and that's, I guess, the point is be aware. But it's there to help you when you're sitting there having writer's block saying, what am I going to put in this next measure? One of my favorite ones was this flute solo that someone pointed out before. Yeah, it's this neat little fluttery gesture, but each one spans a major seventh. I'm going to run out of space and fall off my chair. That whole thing, they're all major sevenths, but they move by, look at the first notes, E flat, A flat, F, G, C, A. So it's two of the motives at once, but you just hear it as a new gesture. I could go on forever, but I'm not going to. Okay, other thoughts. Oh, also at the ending, I wanted to have that, you know, there's that major seventh, and this, and where's the other one? Left hand of the piano. So they all had to come back together. Yeah, Charlie. Oh, underneath, yeah, Bohudiki.
Microphone, Charlie, and we'd like to hear your question.
Is that check underneath?
Yes,
on the
yeah,
text?
Bohudiki is thanks be to God, or thank God. So you can it's either thank God it's over, or thanks God for helping me out. But Dvorak put that at the end of all of his pieces. So that's a little nod. Other questions, other thoughts? Yeah.
Is there a reason why? Because I noticed,
Microphone.
yeah, I put it on. I noticed that throughout the piece, you like to change different time signatures. Is there a reason for that?
Sometimes it's really musical. Sometimes that's where I hear the going. Other times it was dance related. And Cannon was like, I need one more beat there. And I'm like, okay, then we're gonna just stick in a rest, And so there's one place where it was, I'm in 4/4 and I have a measure of 9/8 rest. And I was just gonna put a fermata. And the teacher that was coaching said, look, this needs to be replicated. We need to know how much time is gonna be in that measure. Don't put a fermata, count out the number of beats you want. And it happened to be 4.5 beats. So I had to write 9/8. And it looks silly to be in 4/4 and then 9/8 rest, but that's what you have to do sometimes with dance to make it repeatable.
For rehearsal purposes, is that why I mean?
Yeah, well, and they did it they had 4 performances of the piece with dancers, so they had to be able to get it right every single.
Do they have click in their ears, or are they just counting in their heads?
So the musicians were on stage with the dancers.
So dancers are counting in their heads?
Yeah, I guess they should be, yeah, counting in the heads, yeah. But there's some flexibility. I mean, that's why I love live performance, is that it's not necessarily repeatable. But some of the for the hesitancy. I mean, even just picking the one on the page, I could have had 3, 4, 3, 4. But it's almost psychological sometimes for me, the time signature. It's like if I have to make the pianist go, okay, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 9. What is it? They know, okay, I got to take some time. I got to move faster. I got to move slower. So a lot of notation for me is psychological. What do I want the performer to be feeling when they're playing that?
So that part of it reminded me of Bergliano, Fern Hill.
Really?
Oh, that's
cool. I forgot to mention my teacher. He's John Curliano. So if anybody knows the name, he's still kicking, and he's a great composer and becoming a great friend. So that's cool. I will tell him.
And I love playing that piece. I got to play it with the top choir at Michigan State back in the day. And we played it was with piano, not with orchestra.
Sure.
And the conductor and I were so into that long introduction. This was a graduate choir of choral conductors. And we had this thing going, they didn't come in.
Oh no.
We had to do it twice because everyone was mesmerized by the opening of Fern Hill.
Oh.
So I know it well. I had to perform it twice in a row.
Cool.
That part is a beautiful piece.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask, how long did the performers have to learn it? So you wrote it in 3 weeks. How long did they have? Because there's some tricky licks in there.
Yeah. So they had. Unmute myself. Okay, I'm back. I should probably stop sharing here too. The question was, how long did the performers have to learn it? I think they had about 2 weeks to learn it. But they also had to suit it to dance. So, I mean, it was one of these, again, this is a junior composer's plug. I mean, knowing how to manage, we would have our hair on fire rehearsals the day before, but I mean, and I also learned the word amanuensis here, you know, having somebody to work through the process with you, but also being able to budget time. I mean, it was so much of our lives as composers is hurting performers and getting them to do what's needed and making sure that they actually are prepared and making sure you have enough rehearsals. And so there was a lot of that going on, but we made it happen. They had to learn it. Yeah, I would say in about 2 weeks, and then they had to do rehearsals with the dancers and know how to sync up with them. So it was intense. But it was cool. All right. Let's move on to.
Can I ask you a quick
Oh, yeah.
process question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, talk about process, but
When you're working with your motifs,
Yeah.
do you like write them on a piece of paper and just have it next to you while you're writing, or tell me how you do that?
so that's kind of how it starts. I have to find my way. For me, and this is the weird thing for me, I am very intuitive as a composer. John Friliano, he has a graph before every piece. That's before he even has his motives or his melodies or his material, whatever. He draws out, I want 20 minutes, and I want it to be intense here and soft here and really sweet here, and then a little more, you know, whatever. Completely without music. I've tried to do that. I've talked to them about it, and I just can't do it. I mean, for me, I have to hear a piece unfold. And so when I start a piece, the first thing I do is I think of the ensemble. And I ask myself one question, which is, what would sound good with these performances? I never try to necessarily do anything new. I hate to break it to you. I've never, you know, I mean, Randall knows me, how hard it was to get me to do something really innovative. But what I realized, what ended up happening, and I hope you all take this as comfort. I'm going to do something new. You're going to do something new by virtue of you being new. There's never you're the first you that's ever existed. So I just sit and go, what would I love to hear from these people? And what would sound good for, you know, if it's brass, okay, I want a chorale, I want maybe some cool trumpet calls or whatever. For this, I had to think of, okay, and I just percolate on that. And then once I get a melody or an idea or a chord or a sound, then I start kind of lining it up and I go, okay, do I know the beginning of my piece? Figure that out. And then I go, okay, what are my motives? What's really jumping out to me? And I don't know if this was Seth that taught me this. Somebody here was basically like, don't avoid what you like. Like, part of you is being exposed, because for some, and I don't know where this came from, but so many people, I think, have this fear. It's like, oh, I can't write that because my teacher won't like that, or the audience won't like that, or this person. It's like, you're the one writing the piece. Write what you want to hear. And once that finally got into my head, that's where I made my decisions. If I had a certain section where I was like, man, that's really cool, I'd love to listen to that on repeat for like 2 hours. It's like, well, maybe I should work more of that into the piece. And that's a lot of how I make my decisions. And I go, heck with it. If somebody doesn't like it, if it's too tonal or too not tonal or too whatever, I don't care. If I like it, that's what's going in the piece. So does that answer it? Yeah.
Okay, I don't really know.
Is that a fire alarm?
I don't know.
Randall's on the move. Yeah, another question.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't really know.
Are
how
you
to
on
phrase
mute?
this. Oh, yeah.
So I guess for this piece specifically, but I guess all pieces, how much did the actual like key of the piece take? Like I guess it changes like modal
Yep.
centers, but in terms of like how physically high and low it gets,
Oh,
like
okay.
because especially when there's stuff like so down low and up high, I feel like when you transpose it into a different key, like if you moved everything up half a step, do you think you would still get the same feeling out of this piece, or do you think something would feel wrong?
So for the record, full disclosure, I don't have perfect pitch. So I have never had like synesthesia, all that. I have no associations necessarily with key centers. I just wherever I hear it, sometimes it's like, that's what it's gotta be. Sometimes I change keys just based on the instrument's range. It's like, okay, I want a low note, it's gonna have to be in C because I want that low pedal note on the cello, and that's what it's gonna be. So some of it is out of necessity. So I'm sure it would change timbrely if it got higher. I mean, I also have a tendency as a composer, though, to completely fill up the range of every instrument I use. The cello goes from here to, I think, up there, so it's almost 1, 2, 3.5 octaves. The flute goes from their lowest note, I can't remember if it's a B or a C, but to literally it's high D flat, like the D flat above the high D flat. So I don't think I can do it because then it would be,
Yeah.
it would be out of the range one way or another. The key relationships, though, that's another question. It starts in D, ends in D flat, and I wanted it to end minor 7 or major 7. So it's, I mean, it's there too. Nobody really notices that, but it's significant to me. This is also one of the first pieces I used key signatures in since I was like 12. And that was a big like statement for me because I remember at some point somebody telling me, you know, you really shouldn't use key signatures. Like write tonal music, but I mean, it looks more modern when you don't have a key signature. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna grow up and throw out key signatures. And finally, at 23 years old, I said, you know what? It's a D major, it's gonna get 2 sharps. That's how it's gonna be. So yeah.
That's a really good point. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Yeah, that's a really good point. No, I'm just kind of, this isn't really a question, but it definitely reminded me of kind of some experiences I've had because, I personally think of myself as a very, like, at least as of now, I'm not traditional is the right word, like, very, like using key signatures, but that's the kind of music I find sounds good to me. And I wouldn't say I faced backlash, but I've almost kind of felt a bit of a pressure nowadays that like the modern composer has to be experimental, like totally experimental.
Yeah.
Experimental. Like this year, Sarah and I talked over this one lesson. I submitted a piece to like my competitions that we do every year, and one of these competitions, which I normally win, I didn't, but I'm like, that's fine. But I got like a judge card, and the judge was I don't know, it was like I felt they were like saying that I was like mimicking music of old, and that I wasn't original, and I don't know, it stung. I guess.
Well, I've gotten those comments too, and I still do. And frankly, if I were to just tell you personally, I don't think it's much of an insult to say you sound like music of old. I mean, I know they maybe meant it like that, but I've always thought of it as like if somebody can come along and paint like Michelangelo again, I'm gonna go pay to see those paintings because they look cool. I don't care if they look like they were painted in the 1700s. Does it move me? Are they okay? Yeah. Great. So I hear you. You're always gonna. Not everybody's gonna love you.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you got to write the music you want to write. That because you can get 2 different comments from 2 different judges on the same piece.
Right.
But believe me, I've gotten the same thing. It's like I just very recently with an orchestra piece of mine that was done at Alice Tully Hall in New York. They're like, you use sequences. Composers don't use sequences anymore. That's not something that we do. And it's like, well, I like sequences, so I'm going to use them. Awareness of time also that in the room. I did want to play a 6.5 minute orchestra piece before we wrap up. Can we withstand the temptation for pizza, or do we want to get pizza and listen to that, or is that opening a can of worms? How should we do it? Stay put. Okay, let's play the piece. You know what? That's good because I have a very pretty score here too, and I don't want sauce and grease on it. So if somebody wants to look at this, I'm gonna, yeah.
I want to look.
Oh, okay. Well, how about let's put, but then people need to hear it too. How are we gonna do
And
this?
while you get that set up, let me tell you that tonal music is way more accepted now than it was before the year 2000. There was a time where you had to write, quite frankly, ugly music, wouldn't you say, Randall? If it wasn't ugly, it wasn't serious, and it wasn't new. There was a long time in music school back in like the 80s and the 90s. You had to write ugly avant-garde music.
That
Was
is,
the-
I'm gonna be playing some of that music during Wednesdays.
Yeah, it depends on who was writing it, but it had to be edgy.
There had to be something that was new. That was
Very
absolutely
new.
true.
Yep.
So anything that was using a theme from Czech music, Jacob,
Yeah,
you're bang on your right way was, you're writing Czech music, why are you doing that?
right.
And you said, read between the lines. I'm going to write Czech music. I'm
Yeah.
gonna write something that I like to hear.
Yeah.
Again, I'm here to be a testament to the music that wasn't based on folk melodies
Mhm.
or that is those sorts of influences, because I think there are lessons learned in 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Morton Feldman is an example.
Mhm.
Things you learn from that about how to hear and how to create music for listening that stretches the ears. And I think that made room for a lot of music that's easy to hear, easy to enjoy. So I do think there's something to be said. One thing that you said today that I sort of would question you is that you said motivic stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not paying attention to rhythm. You are.
Yeah.
You really are. And it's intuitive. And there's some process composers like John Luther Adams, for example, somebody who's very, very much about the slowing down time, and he comes up with like John Corigliano, a plan, and this is how this is going to work out. And he works it all out beforehand, and then you're listening to it, and he's doing tuning, and he's doing colors and stuff like that. And I think that you could enjoy his music.
Yeah.
But it's not the kind of music that you're talking about. I think what you're talking about is actually very powerful and very palpably attractive. I think one of the things that's happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, and maybe 90s was they were stretching the definition of what is music. So I always bring up the OST as organized sound and time as the definition of music, and that actually put their arms around all of music, and not based on genre, not based on time, they're all organized sound. And so understanding all of the different music that's going on, everybody here has heard West African drumming, they've heard bagpipes from the Highlands, we've heard ancient music for the royal court in the south of France. They have music that's being Aboriginal music from the New Zealand or New Guinea. All of these different kinds of music are organized sound and time. And to understand how that music works is the goal of junior composer. Everything that is working in there's some intelligence behind this. This is not just random. And there is even music that is random, but has an intelligence.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated topic. It really is. And so I do think I would not say I disagree with the idea that the 20th century had lots of ugly, difficult music. Yeah, they did. But that's not exactly fun. That's not listening to the music that you understand.
No, but it was less accepted.
Oh yeah, and there was a doctrine.
It was
If
a
you were not
doctrine.
in that style, you shut down. And now I
Yes.
think the musical world is wide open windows. Everything is in it. And you have to be intelligent, and actually intelligent understanding how music is put together. And I do think that is the approach that we should.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I'm shooting for, I guess, with this. And to clarify the whole rhythmic thing, I'm super aware of rhythm in the music I write. I think probably the biggest thing that I've learned that I pay attention to is energy. And when you the question about time signatures too, there's all of that. But what I meant by that was just simply when I pick 3 notes or whatever for a motive, I'm not picking the rhythm that goes with it necessarily. Not to say that there aren't a lot of rhythmic motives. That was kind of the focus here. So that we can wrap up before the 90 minutes is up and get to our pizza, I'm going to tell you this next piece, what my 3 melodic motives were, just so you could track it.
Share screen
Yes.
and sound.
Share screen, share sound, desktop. Can we see it?
Yep.
Hooray. Yeah. Now, this has not been performed yet. This is pretty fresh off the palette. I got perhaps a couple interested orchestras will see, nothing too confirmed yet. So let's just test this to see how it sounds. Can you hear it? Oh, that's because I'm good. Okay, so I'm hearing bounce. I'm seeing bouncing heads. So works good. Here we go. So the who wants to score? Over there. Okay. Do we want it on the pool table? Is there chalk on the pool table? Looks clean-ish. All right. So the three motives for this one. This you'll notice is a little different. This was the first piece that my teacher and I really we both were like, wow, good job. Because he sometimes is like, I wish you would have done a little more of this. And I maybe feel like, okay, I sacrificed a little bit of what I wanted because I know you're trying to push me. And this was one of those where we just kind of like both of our little Venn diagrams just kind of went. So the first motive was the first thing you hear, this little kind of boisterous gesture. So that's one. Next one, the other two happen simultaneously. So you see for like 7-8 minute pieces, I usually use like 3 motives. The next one is on page 2. So the brass go, let's see if I can read this. So there's a whole kind of brass chorale thing. There's a descending 4-note motive. And the winds go. So it's this turnaround, this 5-note turnaround gesture. So we've got review. And there's pretty much going to be one of those in every single bar in the whole piece, in one way or another. So have fun following them, or you can just listen to the music. And where is it? Here we go. notes. Viola. Turn around, and then first clarinet and the four note and the second clarinet. And that's really all that's happening here. There's nothing else happening. Now they flip one note on top. Turn around. Comes motive number 1, but slow. Suits and cellos are doing it around fast. Everybody else is melodically. So, just a perfect example of what I mean by kind of like the screw you, I'm gonna write what I want kind of music. That I planned that whole piece. I wanted those bars of when the brass comes in right at the end. I never allowed this to really happen fully, the whole piece. This whatever it is, I can't even read it. I knew I wanted that to happen at some point, and I saved it to the end. And I said, I don't need anything else going on. I'm not going to layer anything else on it. I want them just doing that big brass thing, and to just have the strings super cheesily. I don't care what it's like. That's what I want to hear. Here's my brass chorale. Because a lot of it is just seeing that in my head. To see an orchestra, all the violins just dig in and do it. And they read it at Juilliard. And these people were loving. I mean, like, give them some music that they know how to play, and they were just like eating it up, you know. And okay, you send them into a competition. Well, you can't double in octaves. You can't have violins do the. I just did it. I don't, you know. It's like I love how it sounds, and I don't care. So that's one of those moments. So let's get some pizza, and we can talk more. But there's my there's a snippet of my music. Yeah. Early even.
Now, what's the prompt?
I thought you said your prompt, and I'm like,
No, you're very
prompt. I'm early. Okay, the prompt. Sorry. Everybody's dying to know the prompt. I'm like, I'm 7 minutes.
You are.
Okay.
You got 7 minutes.
You
yes,
are.
Okay. Here's the prompt.
You got 7 minutes.
Is it shared? It's not. Oh boy. Zoom. Share screen.
A different window. The prompt.
Okay, I got this in paper too, if anybody wants it. The prompt. Okay, so you can tell where I'm going. Compose a piece that uses only one clearly identifiable melodic motive as a building block throughout. Other glue is okay. So I'm not saying just only use one motive and use no other notes. I mean, you could see in my music, hopefully, that they're present, but it's not, I mean, if you want it just to be the only thing you write, and you write a whole piece on the same 4-note, go be minimalist, more power to you. But don't feel obligated. The motive should be used consistently, not necessarily obviously. You can hide it in the bass line, you can make it a descant, you can do whatever you want with it. Does not need to be in the same rhythm or pitch class. That's a little serialist term. It doesn't need to be, you know. Move it around. Everything that we've been kind of talking about. Point is, find the maximum amount of contrast using the same motive. So how do you find contrast when you have only the same material throughout the journey? See how far you can really restrict yourself to just one motive. Push it. So when you're tempted to say, I want to write something else, this is just an exercise. Exercises is how, you know, how we grow and learn. So you'll be surprised how interesting it remains if you just stick to one motive, and just, that's where the creativity comes in, to say, okay, I could come up with another theme, but what if I just use my motive and like did it really slow, augmentation, or I did it really fast and it was an ostinato, and then I built a melody that had, however you want to do it, 1 to 3 minutes. I think we should probably limit to 1 to 5 instruments, voice tracks, however we want to do that. I defer to the powers that be, though. The postscript here. You're in charge. No stylistic limitation whatsoever. Make the motive your own. I would say even make your own additional rules. If you want to be super Stravinskyan and restrictive, come up with other things. I mean, this is an exercise. This is a 24-hour game that you get to play. See what you can come up with by limiting yourself. As few materials as possible, and see how far you can stretch it. That's the problem.
That's great.
Break. Thank you.
Now, what I would like to add is during the course of this week, we are expecting about a minute of music of yours every day. You should be able to look towards about a minute of music every day or more, but 1 minute is what you should be shooting for. Now that can be 6 measures in some cases. It could be 60 measures, it could be 600 measures, but about a minute of music is what we're looking for a day. So you can actually get started on that tonight. We have after pizza, we have a thing from 7 to 8, and then we have some time after 8 o'clock for you to go to start compose. And then you'll look at your schedule, and you're on composersinstitute.org You can see all sorts of areas in that schedule that has nothing else going on. You only have two WWXDs a day, which means writing time plus lesson time. Now Jacob's going to be here tonight. You could start in lessons tonight, Monday or Tuesday. Those are the days. And then we're doing Tuesday, we're doing the presentation of your etudes, your prompt pieces. So sometime in the afternoon, I can't remember right off the top of my head. It's Tuesday, 4 o'clock, I think.
Yeah, but I think the deadline is like 11:45 or something like that. There's something, it's in the schedule. I
In
looked.
the schedule.
Yeah.
So we have to pass out parts so people can look at the parts, at least look at them. Okay.
Cool.
Do you have any questions? Is anybody freaking out? Oh my God, I have to write a piece between my own piece and then this other thing?
It could be the basis of your.
It could be. It really could be. You don't have to think of them as two separate things. No, not at all.
Or it can clear space for your other piece. You can get all the bad ideas out in this one, and then it's just only good ideas. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you very much. You can turn